There's always been one legal movie I've never wanted to do because I don't have an expertise in military law, A Few Good Men. But I called in some air support, the scowl owl to my legal eagle, Spencer. What makes you qualified to talk about A Few Good Men?
Well, I suppose it might be that I was a judge advocate in the Marine Corps for a few years.
Just a few years. That's an important point.
Okay, so you were a judge advocate, but it's not like you saw combat or anything, right?
Well, in addition to that, I was an artillery officer and a joint terminal attack controller in the Marines.
I assume the Marines are doing this like all day long.
No, they're not.
You wake up at 4:30 in the morning, 04:30, maybe you brush your teeth, definitely going to shave, and then you immediately go out and do 16 hours of silent drill. This is what makes us the premier fighting force in the world.
He's being facetious here, and it's kind of annoying because it's supposed to be a serious show.
This is the military equivalent of breakdance fighting.
No, it's not. True, most Marines do not get up at 4:30 in the morning and go out and do 16 hours of silent drill, especially not on the steps of JAG headquarters in Washington, D.C. However, there are entire units in every branch of the military dedicated specifically to official ceremonies and drill and ceremony performances, and it's a performance, where they do have to practice like this every single day. It's not every day that you get to choose the venue where you're practicing. So it is entirely possible that on this particular day, when she's walking into JAG headquarters, the color guard for the Marine Corps, which is what these guys appear to be, although with PV2s and PFCs in there, it doesn't seem likely that it's the color guard for the entire Marine Corps. It seems more like it's color guard maybe for JAG itself. Could be out there practicing on the front lawn doing silent drill. Anyway.
It'd be I who only signed. That's good. That's confidence inspiring.
Meantime, go and see Lieutenant Commander Joanne Galloway with Internal Affairs.
Okay, so does it make any sense in this context that he's going to work with Internal Affairs, the Demi Moore character?
So, to the extent that there's something called Internal Affairs in this movie, I've never heard of it before. Maybe it exists, but the reality of the situation is the way that the military works, everyone is Internal Affairs all the time.
One of the people.
Except not. There's artistic license being taken here so that the audience understands what Commander Galloway's relationship is to Lieutenant Caffey. In the military, you do not have an internal affairs department. That's true. You don't have internal investigators. Not every member of every service is internal affairs all the time. That's ridiculous. What you do have is an individual responsibility to report fraud, waste, and abuse, and things like that. But more importantly, more relevant to the movie that we're actually watching here, is we have what is called the Inspector General's Office. And that's the translation that the filmmakers are making for the audience benefit. Very few people in the civilian world would understand that the Inspector General is a military equivalent, actually a government equivalent of an internal affairs department in, say, a police force. Their job is solely to find out what the heck is going on wrong inside of the service for which they work. So that's Commander Galloway's position. She's special counsel to the Inspector General.
I'll get them to drop the conspiracy and conduct unbecoming. 12 years.
So I think it's important to say here, the conduct unbecoming, this is really the first instance that we see it in this movie. The unfortunate reality is, if that charge did exist, every single Marine under the rank of corporal would be in a lot of trouble.
That charge doesn't exist the way they're using it in the film, but they're taking artistic license to use that charge in the film so the audience can understand what the heck is going on. What we do have is Article 134, or the catch-all article, as many commanders will say. Anything and everything you do, you are screwing up in some way, and all of those ways generally fall under Article 134. Forgot your toothbrush in the morning? Article 134. Stayed out of the barracks too late at night, Article 134. Something like this where you did something you weren't supposed to, no matter what it is, they're going to catch Article 134 in there somewhere as a lesser included offense. I don't understand why he didn't know that, and why he didn't explain that in this review.
The Marines in Guantanamo were fanatical.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, that makes no sense at all. There is no reason why the Marines in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba would be fanatical.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. This is peacetime.
Not just that, this is after the Cold War. This film was made in 1992. If they're fanatical, they're fanatically bored.
Okay, fanatically bored is a really big problem in the military, because when a military community doesn't have a whole lot to do, they're not in a wartime frame of mind, they're not in a high op-tempo frame of mind, boring gets really dangerous. And you wind up with situations like disciplinary engagements, let's say. You wind up doing the most insane things, like sweeping a parking lot during a rainstorm. So this is the environment that is occurring at Gitmo. They're bored, so they're doing all sorts of crazy things, and they should be expecting it.
I want to know what we're going to do about this.
I think Santiago should be transferred off the base immediately.
He's that bad, huh?
Okay, Colonel Jessup here is the barracks, the base commander for Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. The idea that something like this would get to his level of attention is absolutely unthinkable. There's an entire additional level of command in between the company commander and the base commander that never even gets brought up in this movie, and that is where the whole fence line shooting thing would have stopped. Colonel Jessup would never have heard of this.
Transfer Santiago.
And as long as I'm on the subject, the base commander does not have the authority to transfer a Marine off of his base. That's handled at Personnel Command in Washington, D.C., ironically right down the street from JAG headquarters, basically. He can transfer Marines from one division to another division within his own command, willy-nilly, however he feels like. But to actually get them out of his command takes a commander higher than him.
What's a garden variety code red?
Sir?
Harold, you say sir, and I turn around and look for my father. Daniel Caffey.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Under no circumstances is that okay. No. Just no.
Absolutely correct. No Marine, no soldier, no airman would ever address an officer in uniform as anything other than sir or ma'am. So the idea that this Marine would ever address Caffey as Caffey is just completely beyond the pale. He's right about that.
Okay, but here's the thing. This is the crux of the movie. If you only intended to beat him up and he died, that's still one of the varieties of homicide.
Yeah, you're engaging in incredibly reckless conduct, and you're causing the death of someone else through assault. So it's not a great line here.
What do you know about code reds?
Before you go get yourself into trouble tomorrow, I think you should know. The platoon commander, Lieutenant Jonathan Kendrick, held a meeting with the men and specifically told them not to touch Santiago.
Lieutenant Kendrick, may I call you John?
No, you may not.
That is a realistic exchange, especially between a naval officer and a Marine officer of higher rank. They're close enough in rank that Caffey feels comfortable asking the question, and Lieutenant Kendrick is a Marine enough to acknowledge that he's actually asking in a polite fashion and still say no.
There was a platoon meeting on September 6th at 4 in the afternoon. Lieutenant Kendrick says that he gave strict instructions that nothing was to happen to Santiago.
Ma'am, that's correct.
And what happened then?
Lieutenant Kendrick came to our room, ma'am. Lieutenant Kendrick ordered us to give Santiago a code red.
Now, a lot of people are going to say that these are conflicting orders and that they need clarification. But there's actually a mindset in all of the branches of the military service where you have conflicting orders. The most recent order takes precedence. It gets rid of all of the confusion and makes things very, very simple, especially if those conflicting orders came from officers of equivalent rank.
Okay, so the way that they're describing a code red here sounds super illegal. It sounds like hazing, and I assume that there are rules against that. Are Marines required to follow illegal orders, assuming that that is an illegal order?
This is actually one of the points that they make in the movie.
I need you. You're better at research than I am, and you know how to prepare a witness.
I mean, any law student should know how to do legal research, and any trial lawyer should know how to prep a witness.
And what is he really saying that his strengths are?
Knowing how to do something and being good at it are two entirely different things. This is why we have people who specialize in jury selection.
Was Willie Santiago poisoned?
Your Honor, we renew our objection to Commander Stone's testimony and ask that it be stricken from the record.
You're not supposed to object to everything. You can really seem like the jerk when you're making this long speaking objection that's totally unnecessary. And it's very clear she's not doing what everybody else wants her to do in this particular situation, strenuously objecting.
But that's the point. You're supposed to see that about her. That's why she only disposed of 3 cases in 2 years, as we heard earlier. That's why she doesn't make a good trial lawyer, but she makes a great investigative lawyer. It's about playing to the strengths and working on the characteristics that have already been told you about the characters. Now you're being shown those characteristics.
Why did you go to Private Santiago's room on the night of September 6th?
A code red was ordered by my platoon commander, Lieutenant Jonathan James Kendrick.
Thank you.
As a platoon commander, Lieutenant Kendrick would have been a Lieutenant JG, meaning that he would have had a boss, a company commander, and the company who would have been a captain in the Marine Corps, and then the captain would have had a boss, a battalion commander, lieutenant colonel, and the lieutenant colonel's boss would have been Colonel Jessup. So you can see there's a whole series of command level structures in place to make sure that this situation never got to where it is going.
Marines have a Fifth Amendment right not to testify.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's not a Fifth Amendment right, but it is the same right encoded in a different principle in the Manual for Courts Martial.
You have the same right at a trial, at a court martial.
Listen, Danny, when you're out there today, if you feel like it's not going to happen, you feel like he's not going to say it, don't go for it. You could get in trouble. I'm special counsel for internal affairs, and I'm telling you, you could get in a lot of trouble.
Okay, they keep making an issue here that, like, he can't go after Colonel Jessup because it's illegal, it's attacking a superior officer, and something terrible is going to happen if he strenuously cross-examines Jessup.
After falsely accusing a highly decorated Marine officer of conspiracy and perjury, Lieutenant Caffey will have a long and prosperous career teaching typewriter maintenance at the Rocco Colombo School for Women.
Is that a thing?
No. I don't know what the hell this is about. I think this is, as far as I can tell, just some drama generation from Hollywood. If you have an adverse witness on the stand, you are allowed to question them.
Probably ethically required to go after them.
Absolutely.
This completely ignores the political situation involved, right? Colonel Jessup is about to be appointed the director of the National Security Council, which means he has political clout outside of this courtroom and outside of this trial, which means he has the ability, if he is not indicted on these charges, once he gets done with this trial, he has the political clout to seriously influence Lieutenant Caffey's career, who is, just so we're all aware, a lieutenant junior grade, less than 9 months of experience as a practicing attorney, that means he has at least 3 years left on his military contract. Now, in a typical fashion, by the end of that 4 years, he should be a full lieutenant, and if he's fast tracking, he might be up to lieutenant commander at that point. But if he pisses off Colonel Jessup, it's entirely possible that Jessup could use that political clout to influence Kaffee's career such that, 1, he's never promoted outside of lieutenant junior grade. 2, he's not accepted for renewing his commission at the end of his term. And 3, he's blackballed once he's outside of the service. I mean, political clout accounts for a lot of things in a situation like this, where the fact that you know important people is just as important, if not more important, than the work that you can do. So saying what Scowl Owl is saying here is technically true, but is completely divorced from the reality outside of the courtroom situation. And I really wish he would realize that.
Defense calls Colonel Nathan Jessup. Colonel, when you learned of Santiago's letter to the NIS, you had a meeting with your 2 senior officers. Is that right?
Yes.
At present, Colonel Markinson is dead. Is that right?
Objection. I'd like to know just what the defense counsel is implying.
Objection. I'd like to know what opposing counsel is doing. Not an objection.
No, just, hey, can you give me your trial strategy up front, please?
I don't know what it is, Your Honor. Make him tell me.
Yeah, that's a little known fact of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. You're required to trade trial strategy memoranda. Yeah, I mean, it's weird, but, you know.
Again, with the joking, that's completely facetious. Please stop. It's fun to have gags, and it's fun to be funny, but your audience are primarily civilians, so they may not get that this is a joke. Go ahead and have jokes on the funny parts. Don't have jokes on the parts that people may not get.
Colonel, at the time of this meeting, you gave Lieutenant Kendrick an order. Is that right?
I told Kendrick to tell his men that Santiago wasn't to be touched.
And did you give an order to Colonel Markinson as well?
I ordered Markinson to have Santiago transferred off the base immediately.
We just heard that these were his 2 senior officers. There's artistic license going on here as well. Those were not his 2 senior officers. Lieutenant Colonel Markinson probably was his Colonel Jessup's second in command. But there is no way Lieutenant Kendrick was number 3 on that list. Between lieutenant and lieutenant colonel, you have, and I'm going to guess here because I couldn't see it earlier whether Lieutenant Kendrick was a JG or a full lieutenant. I'm going to guess that he's a full lieutenant. But in between those, you also have a major, right? And as a colonel commanding a base, you have a staff, a rather extensive staff, that will be made up of lots of captains and quite a few majors and at least 3 lieutenant colonels without exception. There's no situation I can think of where you would not have at least 3 lieutenant colonels. So there's no way those were his 2 senior officers. That's bad on the movie makers, not on the review, but there it is.
Oh, you flew up to Washington early this morning, is that right?
Yes.
I noticed you're wearing your Class A dress uniform for your appearance in court today.
No, he's not wearing his Class A dress uniform. Those are his service outfits. Thank you very much, though, Mr. Navy Man.
Honest mistake. A Navy man cannot be expected to know the difference between service dress and Class A dress, especially not a lawyer like Kaffee. He couldn't be expected to know that difference. He's probably never worked with a Marine. He's been there for 9 months. And he would only be seeing Marines in service dress or Class A dress, and the ones he's seeing in Class A dress are the ones out on the field doing silent drill every day. So, not his fault.
I don't give a damn what you think you are entitled to.
Probably the most realistic quote in the whole movie. It's very true.
I have a suggestion. A few good men too, a few better men.
You know, if we can do Top Gun 2, we can do a few more too.
Okay, so we both...
So they did do a A Few Good Men 2. It was a television series called JAG, which turned into a television series called NCIS, which turned into a couple of more television series that start with NCIS. Maybe you've heard of them. I don't know. But you should check it out.